Welcome to the Beachwood Business Compass podcast. This podcast is brought to you by the Office of Economic Development for the City of Beachwood. I'm Cathy Bieterman, the Economic Development Director. This podcast has one simple mission: to be able to bring tools, resources, opportunities, and insights to our local businesses to help them thrive here within the city. Today's discussion is going to be largely on real estate, talking about the unique opportunities that may be on the horizon for the city of Beachwood. In Team NEO's most recent release of Developing Opportunities, it showed that manufacturing demand is growing, but our inventory of ready-to-develop sites is not keeping up. Some of the data that's driven from that report showed medium-sized projects dominating in terms of searches. Advanced manufacturing, healthcare related to medical device manufacturing, biomed, biotech, opportunities for lab space related to those industries, IT, infrastructure, and software all seem to be emerging trends coming into the Northeast Ohio area. So joining us today for this discussion is Bryce Sylvester, Managing Director of CRESCO Cleveland. Bryce, it's been a pleasure working with you over the years. I've enjoyed all of our conversations on the many site development opportunities through both your past experience and now here. You have a vast experience in real estate, working with Team NEO and now here with CRESCO. Can you talk a little bit about some of that experience and what opportunities that's opened up for you?
Absolutely. First of all, Cathy, thank you so much for having me on. It's a thrill to be here. Unique background leading me to brokerage. So the quick cliff notes are: before I was at CRESCO, I spent 5 years at Team NEO leading the site strategies team. And before that, 10 years at City Hall in Lakewood in the job that you are in Beachwood. So I come to brokerage with a pretty unique experience, and that's a strength for CRESCO because I've got an army of brokers. We got 32 brokers in-house, and my experience all comes from nonprofit and public. Also on the incentives negotiation side, and all of my relationships are really spread across 18 counties that make up Northeast Ohio. So a big reason why I came over to CRESCO is complementing our strong brokerage services with the relationships that I bring to the table, which is where you and I have spent so much time together in the past.
Yeah, and it's really interesting to have that perspective on both sides, because it definitely takes a collaboration and partnership to be able to make these projects work. And especially now today with some of the complexities that come at us related to these projects. So having that united force between the brokerage community and the economic development team is really, I think, kind of giving you that grassroots effort to make sure that we're positioned well for those opportunities when they come about.
100%. I think you will appreciate this, but I've been at CRESCO for 7 months. And the analogy that I can't get out of my head is that it's simply economic developers and brokers want the same things, but they speak a different language that they don't completely understand. So imagine you were talking to somebody that was speaking Spanish and you could kind of pick up some of it. And then somebody else was speaking French and you could kind of pick up some of it. That is what I see happen every single day. And so the great news is that usually economic developers and brokers are aligned. It's just a matter of how you get the projects done. That's where the magic can really happen.
Absolutely. And I think a lot of that is because there are competing interests there. And, you know, from a city perspective, we want to drive the best opportunities in the real estate that we have, because we have limited opportunities to be able to do that. And it's really great when we're able to kind of share that vision of what we want to see within our project areas with the brokerage community, like we have been able to with you, because it really brings about the synergy that we need to so that you know where we're going to come from when it comes to working with the clients that you're working with.
Absolutely. And Cathy, I will tell you this. The communities like Beachwood and under your leadership are able to clearly communicate what it is that the community values in terms of real estate development or economic development. I can't tell you how helpful that is for our brokers, because at the end of the day, our brokers are responding to market conditions, and we're here to serve our clients and prospects that are coming our way. But really what we're trying to do is find the best place for them in any given area. So whether it's a site in Beachwood or an existing building in Beachwood, trying to find the best spot. for that client. The hardest part is when we don't understand what a community wants, because then you pretty much bring everything. And that can be a frustrating dynamic where it's kind of like, hey, I'll support it. When I see it, I'll know and I'll tell you. That's really hard. Where you guys have been so good is like, here's what we're after. Here's why that's the case. And then that gives our brokers and our team, okay, this is what the task is. Let's go try to have the market mold to that, what that community desires.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've talked a lot about these site opportunities, and, talking about Chagrin Highlands, we have this opportunity for 30 acres within the Chagrin Highlands, and that small property is really unique, right? It offers some flexibility, it offers some attractiveness to mid-sized industries, and it really, I think, from our perspectives, offers an opportunity for us to play a larger role in the attraction of out-of-state, out-of-region opportunities for site development within this area. I see Chagrin Highlands as really being positioned as an A-plus site here within the community because of the workforce that's nearby in proximity. You have very easy access off of multiple exchanges here within the I-271 corridor. And then you really have very ease and access to other interchanges here throughout Northeast Ohio that get you across the spectrum very quickly. So that, coupled with some of the educational opportunities that are here, I think there's a lot to be said about this site. And I'm curious from your perspective how you see these 30-acre sites being marketable within the Cleveland metro area.
Yeah, well, let's talk about the attraction space in particular. One, a lot of deal flow in Northeast Ohio are companies that are here. And I say that with a lot of pride. This is a company that's growing maybe from 80 employees to 110 employees, and that's fabulous, and we need to support that growth inside of our region. When you're talking about attracting a company, maybe that's their first time here, maybe they have a small operation and they're looking to come here for the first time, the first pass is to make it through the spreadsheet. And I know you've spent a lot of time thinking about this, but the spreadsheet is the checklist.
Absolutely.
And so when you talk about things like transportation assets, workforce, what institutions on the educational front are proximate, and then site readiness, your site selector or your broker in another community is going to go through a checklist of things. And if you don't make the checklist, remember, these people they're not Beachwood proud. They're in Indianapolis, or they're in Pittsburgh, or they're in New York or Atlanta, and you're competing against multiple regions. So it's like, first task is make sure we don't get eliminated on the checklist, right? And this is where you and I have talked so much. Once Beachwood gets past that checklist on this 30 acres, which it will, because you guys are getting in control, you're going to predict your destiny, then that's where it starts to get special, because then you start to talk about the story of not only just showing the workforce, but maybe talking to a company about what it's like for them to hire and retain great talent in and around Beachwood. Or on the infrastructure side, showing them how stable our infrastructure is on water and sewer.
Absolutely.
Or walking the actual education. That's when that story becomes so powerful. And there just aren't that many 30-acre options this close to the core. And so you're just putting yourself in a position where you're going to look great on paper, and then you're going to be able to tell a great story.
And I think putting that Team Neo perspective on from my side, we know what it takes to make these sites competitive. We know what that checklist is.
Yep.
And it's really making sure that we're doing all of the efforts to ensure that the environmentals are complete on the site, that we have the preparedness and readiness of the site ready to go, that we have the infrastructure in place to support the investment that's coming, and that we ultimately are maximizing the opportunity from a utility perspective for the use that we anticipate within that space.
Yep.
And that site readiness and competitive opportunity that's there to be able to be a certified site within the state of Ohio under that 30 acres opportunity, I think is close for us. We're obviously on the small side, but we can prepare our site in a way that we really are meeting the metrics of what those ROIs are looking for when they come in for seeking site opportunities.
Without a doubt. And here's the other thing, Cathy, that I'm actually really excited to work with you on. There's this the reactive part of the site selection business is like an opportunity is presented either through brokerage or through site selectors, and you respond to it. That's very common, and you will compete for many of those opportunities. There's also this thing that we're starting to daylight now at CRESCO in partnership with Team Neo on getting proactive for the specific industries that you think you're well positioned for. So I'll give you an example. We brought in a land listing out in Alliance. We partnered with Team Neo to assess workforce strengths and industry strengths in that territory. We identified 2 very specific sectors that we think are very strong for that land site. And now we're building a proactive marketing campaign that's just going to target companies in those spaces where we're just telling a story about metals fab, for example. Put everything else aside. We're just going to talk about why this is great for metals fab. Right?
Yes.
And we can do the exact same thing in Beachwood where it's like, look, the site can be a lot, right? And we will, trust me, we'll tell the whole world that.
Yeah.
But there's also going to be these very, very specific use cases where we can do niche marketing.
Absolutely.
And control our story. And I see us targeting companies that are out of state, to your point
And now
earlier.
you're speaking my language, because that's exactly where we want to be.
100%.
We know the gem that this 30 acres has and the potential that this has to be an attraction effort for not only us, but for the region. And when I look at the emerging clusters that are here within Beachwood alone, we have so many synergetic opportunities to be able to interconnect with headquarter locations that are already here. You know, we have over 50 headquarter locations. We have 20 companies that are really focused on investing in R&D, and we have multiple companies that are really putting investment in heavily in innovation. And all of those really transpire the opportunities that I foresee to align with those cluster industries here within the city of Beachwood. And then when you look at the healthcare perspective, there's opportunities there around what's transpiring in biomed, biotech. And then on the bigger perspective, you know, the discussions are continuing to unfold here around Joby and aviation, and then NASA and the opportunities for aerospace interconnectivity and all those others. So I really think that there's ways that we can play a very unique role. And I look forward to that targeted marketing, because from our aspect, that's a lot of what we've been spending our time on these last few years. And I'm noticing the return on that targeted marketing and the ability that we are now making in some of these key industry areas outside of the state of Ohio. And we're starting to get some pull on that. So I know that the impact can be great. And I think the alignment there with the brokerage community to be able to sell that story will just carry that forward all that much more.
Yeah, I think this is just an example for me, Cathy, where it's like the alignment that you talk about is right in front of us. So lean on CRESCO to be the real estate people, right? The marketplace. Here's what's transacting. We can talk about the dirt. We can talk about vacancy rates. We can talk about all the metrics that are happening in the real estate space. You bring hyper local story about Beachwood. And let me pull in our friends over at Team Neo who can talk about regional economic development, all of the research about Northeast Ohio, 2 million large. And we all have these very dedicated roles to play with accountability that are very clear.
Yeah.
And that is cool. If you put a Team Neo person here, maybe somebody from Jobs Ohio, and we're sitting across the table from a company, I would go to bat every day of the week with that team.
And I'll tell you that partnership is so important to me because it really brings value back to the company.
Yeah.
And I think the more that we can bring value back to the company, the more we are able to be successful in what we do.
Yeah.
Now, when I look today, there's a lot of changes happening around us.
Yeah.
A lot of nuances that are going to continue to drive change, both from a state and federal perspective. But ultimately, when I look back at those changes that have occurred over the last, in past decades, that's really been an opportunity for us to kind of take the time to position these opportunities correctly so that as that market comes back around, new opportunities can unfold in the way that we want to see them. How do you see those changes? Is it kind of similar in the sense from a brokerage standpoint?
Yeah. The crystal ball is impossible in terms of where we're headed. But I'd say the real estate markets in brokerage, the worst thing that happens for us is when it just sort of stays stagnant for a really long time. And it's unfortunate, but, opportunities come sometimes when there are dips in the market, whether that be by asset class, unemployment, whatever is causing the issue, that can create opportunities in the market in terms of real estate.
Yeah.
And so really what you're trying to do on a daily basis is just control what you can control. And on the brokerage side, that means us getting closer to our existing clients and maybe our inactive clients about how we can service them. And I'd say let's just look back in the last 6 to 18 months.
Yeah.
Everyone's reading the news, everyone's reading the headlines. It's very difficult to predict wherever we're headed. But what we know for sure is that we can shore up our existing client base and say, okay, how can we help you navigate through these waters? And that this business is still a relationship business. And so we intend to do that moving forward. And I think that's really one of the most important things and kind of, I'll call it uncertain times.
Absolutely. And I think what's really incredible is I saw that you now have this investor-led division of CRESCO.
Yeah.
And when I see that come about at this time, it really, I think, speaks to me because I can see that investor-led relationship building really can bring some local opportunities for investment within our community. And we love to see that investment come from a local interested party because we then have more ability to work with that property owner to really make sure that we're being a strategic partner in the future of their investment here within the city.
Absolutely. This investment sales division that we've stood up is really focused on all income-producing properties throughout Northeast Ohio. But you hit the nail on the head on the reason that we've decided to do this is, one, we're bullish on that space. Two, we want to dedicate 2 of our brokers to exclusively focus on this. And we want to signal to the market that you can come to us for underwriting, for market research. And we're here on the industrial, office, retail, investment sales side as experts.
And it really takes that now today when you're looking at these office building opportunities and the metrics behind that. It takes a deep dive into that property to really understand how it's positioned and how it's going to continue to be positioned in the Cleveland market area.
100%. And I'd say as investors, particularly that are outside of Northeast Ohio, Cleveland's looked at as a tertiary market, secondary market, and boots on the ground research rules the day when you're talking to somebody or an investor group out of Atlanta or Austin or New York. And they rely on us having a really good relationship on, hey, tell me about the hyper-local Beachwood office market and how could we place capital in that area? Or a question that we get often is, where would you place capital if we had it? You know, we're looking at Ohio in mass, but if we were to place dollars in Cleveland, can you help guide us on where that might be? A lot of them have focus on what asset classes they like, whether it's multifamily, industrial, retail. But we're really trying to build up our presence in that space because we see an opportunity there.
And I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to continuing to work through that. You know, there's emerging industry opportunities that align with our ability to be able to fill office space. And when I look at our Class A office space, you know, I'm fortunate here within the city of Beachwood that we don't have a lot of vacancy in that Class A office space. But we still want to be able to position the space that we do have to be able to capture companies that are meaningful to build that industry base that we have here that's synergetic with what we know is successful within our Northeast Ohio area.
Yeah.
And it really takes a strong working relationship with you to be able to do that in the brokerage community.
100%. There's a lot of questions that remain on office space in general, but let's just say suburban office space. I'd say our working hypothesis is that in general, more people are coming back to the office. Companies spent the last pretty much 24 to 36 months, a lot of them kind of putting on temporary solutions while they navigated through whether or not it was going to be hybrid forever or if they were going to downsize or expand. I'd say that's starting to shake out.
Yeah.
And so here's what that means. Leases are coming up, which means companies are having to make decisions. It's more likely than not that employees are likely coming back to the office either partially or full time. And so then it's like, how does your community win inside that space in a region that, you know, we're not knocking the cover off the ball as a region in terms of office space, but how do you win the 8,000 square foot tenant that's looking out in the market? you guys have a very strong office market, but you'll compete with the other strong markets.
Mm-hmm.
And from our perspective, that's going to be about how some of the things we're talking about. How do you collaborate with the city to do improvements to the property? How do you collaborate with that property owner to make those long-term improvements? Does that owner have the capital necessary to put into TI or things like that? So from our perspective on the office side, all of that is coming to a head soon.
It is. And, that's one of the reasons that we've really put into place this $1 million revolving loan fund now within the city of Beachwood to be able to play an active role in supporting those investments that are going to be needed to be able to bring the right companies that we want to see transpire into those spaces. And we're starting now to see and understand how those revolving loans can really be impactful in the ability of attracting companies, here to Beachwood. So I look forward to more ways in which we can collaborate, because a lot of that discussion around the opportunity for commercial revitalization loans and opportunities for supporting commercial revitalization in the office space came from your office. So we appreciate that dialogue always. Quality of life. Quality of life is being touted here within Northeast Ohio. When you look at the cost of living and the support that's there from a business perspective, there's a lot to be said. How do you see quality of life playing a role in decision-making here still today?
I'll carve out my experience when I was at Team Neo, when we would work on an attraction project. It was always on the list during the storytelling component, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'll just give you my raw response on this.
I love it.
The CEO needs to see where their family is going to live. And they either are here or they're not here yet. And that has to be really clear. And no one's going to write that down on paper, but I'm telling you that it's really important. And I would maybe put that in even into their executive suite. Where is that group going to live, go to school? Where are they going to raise their family? Their significant others become a big part of that, especially on the larger attraction projects. But on the equal footing for that is the diversity of options for all of their employees. So it's quality of life in all of your neighboring communities. And this is why the regional economic developers kind of strip away political boundaries from time to time, because at the end of the day, it just turns into what assets do you have within a 30-minute drive time, and does that meet the assets that we need for our employees? So, for example, let's just put housing in the quality of life bucket for a minute. If they've got production workers that are making $60,000 a year, what does the housing option look like for that person's family? Mm-hmm. And you have to show them that.
Absolutely, that workplace housing.
And so that, coupled with the executive suites housing, how do you bring that all together in one story? Mm-hmm. That's how you win. And then I'll just tell you from my perspective, I think Northeast Ohio has a ton of options as it relates to that.
Yeah.
And the quality of life that surrounds all of that. So
yeah, and I agree with you 100%. When I look at the discussions that I'm having with companies as they're looking at relocating here to the city of Beachwood, it does come up in frequent conversation, because today, with that work-life balance that their employees are looking for, and they're looking for amenities that are in close proximity to their offices so that they have the feel of the amenities around them, but they're coming in daily back into the office. And so we're seeing that play more of a role today. And I agree with you 100% on the housing perspective too. We're seeing that companies, as they're pulling their employees back in, the employees are wanting to live closer to work. They don't want to do these long commutes anymore, and they want the amenities close by. We're fortunate that we're in a very nice retail niche here within the city of Beachwood. We have the luxury of having multiple retail districts around us that really support vibrancy for those employees that are here. And we have really rich fitness opportunities and outdoor recreation, and even interconnectivity with both the luxury market as well as, what's transpiring, from a cool, edgy retail perspective.
Yes.
We have locals as well as nationals, and all of that really plays into that quality of life factor. And I do see it being more and more relevant. I know it's kind of had its ebbs and flows of where does quality of life factor in.
Yeah.
But I do see it as being an important component now. more than ever in those discussions with those C-suite level
Yeah,
executives.
you wonder too, or it makes me wonder a little bit too, is if there's just new leadership at companies that the priorities just tend to shift over time. So if the 42-year-old CEO just took over and then they really value the quality of life piece, or that's a big part of the culture that they're instituting, then that may show up in their site selection or their real estate search.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm always eager to continue to find ways in which we can be innovative, ways in which we can identify new opportunities to enhance our economic development efforts. And I look forward to more opportunities to connect, because I think those discussions can help further drive what we can do collectively and together to be able to truly be a magnet for opportunities that are coming from both the state perspective here within the area and even locally, to retain the companies and the talent that we have here.
Yeah.
So, Bryce, I've enjoyed our conversation. It's been wonderful talking with you. I look forward to continuing to work with you in the future, and a strong partnership going forward as we continue to talk about opportunities in the Chagrin Highlands. Thank you for joining us today for the Beachwood Business Compass podcast, Beachwood's ultra community-focused business support tailored to your growing business needs. For more information on the City of Beachwood's economic development site opportunities, visit beachwoodohio.com and the economic development page. We look forward to our future podcasts and look forward to having your listenership here within the City of Beachwood.